And of course, we have much more on the situation in Venezuela on our website. Now, sexual harassment, bullying and a contempt for motherhood are driving aspiring female surgeons out of operating theatres. A new study has found that women account for just 11% of surgeons in the UK and Australasia, and a higher proportion are leaving the profession. Now, these findings come as a young female surgeon made headlines last week in Australia after exposing the treatment that she endured in Australian hospitals. Well, we can speak to Dr Rhea Liang, who's a surgeon based in Queensland and who's been looking into the conditions of female surgeons working in Australian hospitals. Of course, the case of Dr Yumiko Kadota has really hit the headlines. She is not the only one. Explain, when you were talking to various different female surgeons, what kind of pattern of treatment did you find?
So her experience is certainly not the only one or unusual. All our interviewees reported very similar experiences. Many of them are gendered, to do with harassment and discrimination and beliefs about not being able to be a good surgeon if you became a mother. But actually a lot of the things that were reported affect everyone, not just women. In terms of long hours of work and fatigue, bullying, and the efforts required to raise children while doing training.
The long hours that Dr Kadota was explaining during her blog did seem incredibly intense. There was one week where she was doing so many hours that it just seemed impossible for her to continue, which eventually she did leave.
Yes, and they have been traditional in surgery for a very long time. There has been a belief that somehow toughening up people makes them into better surgeons. But in actual fact, recent evidence has shown that fatigue impairs your performance and makes it more likely to make an error, and that this impacts on patient care. And so there's been a great deal of effort by the College of Surgeons in Australasia to put in place guidelines about safer working conditions. The difficulty is that this applies really only to our trainees, who fall under the governance of the College of Surgeons, whereas Dr Kadota was what we call an unaccredited trainee, or what you might call a service registrar in the UK, where they are learning their basic skills before applying for advanced training, and that's not under the governance of the College of Surgeons. We would very much like for those guidelines to be applied to all junior doctors, regardless of their level of training.
You touched upon some of the abusive behaviour as being gender specific. Can you just explain a little bit, elaborate on what you meant?
Yes, so we found that surgical training is demanding enough by itself, but that women had additional work to do to fit into the environment that is created for them, which is really very masculine because, of course, 89% of surgeons at the time of the study were male. So there was gender harassment and discrimination, things like pictures of sex positions put up on the walls of resident common areas. There were some disclosures of frank sexual assault, but other than those very extreme examples, there were a multitude of examples of very things that might seem quite minor, but they do make a woman feel very much as though they're the other in surgery, a different person, different to what surgeons do. Little comments and discriminations about why you ought not be there or why you shouldn't have children.
Dr Rhea Liang, thank you so much for bringing your report to our attention. Many thanks.
My pleasure.